Hey guys, Mike here. In this video, I'm going to show you how you know if your team is really good. And this is how I plan out my teams as well, so maybe you can pick up some tips here as well. So how I do it is I basically first identify the 14 units that I'm bringing to the final battle. And then I'm just keeping track of how everyone is doing in terms of the roles that they're trying to fulfill. And you can see here, like I have green X's when I feel that unit is already, up to snuff and I think is ready for the final battle. And yeah, you just have to basically, your team is really good if you have a ton of these green X's everywhere, right? Because if you have a lot of green X's, that means you have lots of units that can fill multiple roles in your army, and that makes your team really good because that means you have more moves and options that you can do during the actual battle. So, say for example, there's 4 armors on the field. Well, you got that situation covered because you have your magic busters who are already filled out, and then you may have magic speedsters who can take care of them, right? So, just if you have a ton of X's, then your team is good. Now, I would say if you are just trying to roll credits for that final maddening battle, then I would suggest having at least 2 physical busters, having at least 2 magic busters, and then everyone else can be Fizz Speedster, maybe 2 to 3 Fizz Speedsters, and try to get some Magic Speedsters. Like for my team here, Clan is my designated Magic Speedster, and he's already doing good in that role. So if I was trying to improve this team, I would try to get a couple more Magic Speedsters if possible on this team. And, Magic Speedsters are units that use magic and can double the unit reliably. So right here, I have a yellow question mark for Anna and a yellow question mark for Mavier, because the yellow question mark is telling me, hey, these are probably good candidates that you can use for a Magic Speedster. And as I get more items and I win more maps and get more EXP, then I'm always re-evaluating whether Anna or Mavier can fulfill the Magic Speedster role. So for example, like Anna, I noticed as a warrior, her speed is actually getting quite high now. And because she has the Radiant Bow, she could actually turn into a Magic Speedster. So she can sort of graduate from the Magic backup role and become a Magic Speedster, which is really nice. And it gives my army more options, right? Like if I need to double armor reliably, then she can just use the Radiant Bow because her speed is starting to get really high. So originally she was just a magic backup, because a magic backup is just someone who can use magic and it's not like their primary role, right? So these are units like the Levin Sword, units with the Levin Sword, the Flame Lance, the Hurricane Axe, and the Radiant Bow. So Anna has the Radiant Bow, and because she's getting faster, she can possibly become a Magic Speedster. So that's why I have a question mark here. So it's sort of pending, right? And yeah, just going back to the roles. So I mentioned 2 Fizz Busters I think is good, at least 2. Magic Buster, at least 2 is good. Fizz Speedsters, 3 or more is good. Magic Speedster, 3 or more if you can manage it. Magic Backup as much as possible. Like always having those magic damage options is always great. And again, Magic Backups typically units with the Levin Sword or the Hurricane Axe or the Flame Lance or the Radiant Bow. Magic Backups can also be like off tome users. So for example, Saline, who can use tomes, and maybe I can just throw on a tome on her just in case, and that could help fill a row as Magic Backup. Crit Fishers, I feel like at least 1 is good for every overpowered squad. The more you can get, the better, because it's just more options. So for example, here I have Clan. Oh, actually, Clan is not a Crit Fisher. I don't know why that's there. That should be deleted. But Lapis definitely with the Killing Edge. Rosada with the Killer Axe. Tamara I consider a Crit Fisher because she does have the Killer Lance, but she also has Sandstorm, so she can just roll on Sandstorms. And Sandstorms are essentially like really strong attacks, right? Sure, light criticals. So if she rolls on her attacks and gets criticals from the Killer Lance or from Sandstorm, I both consider those crits, so that's why I consider a Crit Fisher in that sense. And then Fizz Tanks, I would say at least 2 Fizz Tanks per A squad, at least 2 Res Tanks. A quick note about the Fizz Tank, like I even consider Tamara a fizz tank now because she has her defense is getting up there, and I also threw Roy on top of Tamara, or I threw out the holdout skill on Tamara. So I'm playing around with that, and that holdout skill can effectively make her into a fizz tank. It's not your traditional fizz tank with just large HP and large defense, so it's a little different, but that's how I would do that. And then also keeping track of who can use staves. So right now I have 4 stave users. Anyone can use a stave on my team, so staves are not a problem. So I consider this team actually ready for the final battle. Once I do a few more maps, get more experience, but just like as far as the tools and roles that they're fulfilling, I think they're already all set for the final battle. So how you can use this is, if you're not ready for the final battle, you just look at this chart and you're like, what roles do I need help with, right? So like, if I was trying to improve this team, I would be like, okay, I would like a couple more magic speedsters. So like I said, I have Anna as a good candidate for a magic speedster. And if I'm looking to just make this team even more cracked, I have a couple of question marks here for fizz busters, which units I would hopefully graduate them into the fizz buster role. So right now I have a Lear here. She can possibly use the silver blade to get in high sword attacks, and if I could maybe get sword power on a Lear, that's one option. If I really not using the inheritable skills, I could just throw on sword power, maybe get more damage that way. And even maybe just having Marth with Lodestar Rush could turn a Lear into a temporary fizzbuster role. Using the emblems to that effect can temporarily, like when they're engaged, allow them to fill a role. So like for example, Erica, with what's her the twin strike attack, that could give someone a fizzbuster role because that attack does a lot of physical damage. So that's one way to think about these roles a little bit, is like how the emblems can help kind of morph and mold your unit into that role, even if it's temporary, like while they're engaged. So this team looks pretty good. I mean, I've been looking at it over and over, and I really don't need anything more. At this point, I'm just trying to make them overpowered, like just super overpowered. So that's why I have these question marks here, but I honestly really don't need them. The last thing I wanted to talk about are these roles over here on this side of I kind of have like this thick border here, and these are just kind of notes here that just things to help complete your army. So I have the longbow. Anna has the longbow. You can probably forge another longbow if you really want another 3-range physical option, but I think 1 longbow is generally enough. And I have 3-range magic options, so that's like your Thunders, your L Thunders, and your Thorons. I gave Citrine the Thoron, and I just have like Thunder on the rest of everyone. So what I have a question mark here, which is reminding me that, hey, you should probably upgrade those Thunder Tomes and forge them into L Thunders at least. I think that would be a good idea. And then calves, like people who are on horses that have that 6 move, is really nice to keep track of. I think most A squads have at least 1 cav. I think maybe 2 calves is fine. 3 calves is, I guess it's better. I mean, you are going to be susceptible to anti-cav, Lance, Rider's Bane, but it's not that big of a deal. So I think maybe 2 calves is fine. 3 is not necessarily better in my opinion. I just think 2 is fine. At least 1 though. Flyers, I think at least 1 flyer per A squad is more than enough. If you want 2, I think that's fine. 2 or 3 could be fine. I mean, you're just going to be more susceptible to bow squads, so you have to be a little bit careful there. It's just something to consider. And the last point here is daggers. So I think 1 dagger user is fine. Actually, in my first Maddening playthrough, I had 2 dagger users, which was a bit unnecessary, but I think 1 dagger is fine. The nice thing here is I recruited Vale, so Vale can use magic daggers. So that's one. That's how I'm filling the dagger role. You can see, like, when I was playing my whole second Maddening playthrough, I actually wasn't even using daggers the whole playthrough. So that's where Vale is, when she comes in, and she has come in, and she's able to fill that role, and now it's even further strengthening my team and making it more complete. So yeah, if this is, I think this chart is a good way to keep track of your short-term goals, like, as you're playing through the early game and the mid game, like how you are building your units so that they fulfill all the roles. And then so when you finally reach the end game chapters, you have like a cracked squad of your own. that you can use to just totally obliterate those final chapters. And yeah, it's just to help you keep track of everything. And you don't actually have to like make a full chart like I did. You can cut corners, I would say. You can like make just like make notes in a notepad or on Google Keep or Google Docs or something like that. If you're a little bit lazier, you can, if you really don't want to make a whole like write out notes, you can just make mental notes. The issue with that is you're more likely to forget. So, if you make mental notes, you just got to be careful. But yeah, someone who's more planned out is definitely going to most likely have a better team than you. But, it's not the end of the world. If you're really good tactically, it's really not that big of a deal, right? Because you can compensate on the lack of your team's power by just having really good tactics and really good skill when you're actually playing the map. Right. So anyways, like I said, to summarize, the more squares you can fill in on this chart, the stronger your team will be. The more bases you got covered, the more each of your individual units can cover and back up your other units. The more moves you have on player phase, so you just have more options and you don't have to think as hard tactically because you just have so many options at your disposal that you really don't have to think that hard. So this is one way to play the game. This is one way to plan out your army so that they're really strong. And I find this works incredibly well. And I will link what each of these roles are in that video that I did earlier that explains all of these roles and why these roles are so important for any perfect team army. And anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video and thanks for watching.